at the next election. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Julianne Gento.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's a pleasure to take a call in the last 15 minutes at 11:45 during urgency. The Green Party will be supporting this bill, even though it's not perfect, because we don't think the perfect should be the enemy of the good, and this bill does, on balance, quite a lot of good things. It has been widely canvassed, and the details have been worked on for a very long time by the officials who I think have done quite a good job. The main purpose of this bill, as we've heard, is to make all general-purpose financial reporting consistent with the primary objective of the financial reporting system, which is to provide information to external users who require that information and cannot demand it. In other words, the bill should make the requirements to disclose and report more fit for purpose to the organizations that are required to report. The Green Party supports a much smarter approach to regulation. This bill does that by easing some of the burden of financial reporting for non-large, non-issuing entities. In other words, it simplifies reporting requirements for small and medium companies, for charities, churches, and the like. It also tightens up some of the requirements for large entities to bring it in line with the Financial Markets Conduct Act, which was passed recently. Financial reporting is important for a few reasons. Firstly, it is especially important for public accountability. There is a public interest in organizations that are funded by taxpayers, like Crown entities, government departments, state-owned enterprises. But it's also important for banks, insurers, mutual funds, any organization that is a deposit taker or issuer of debt, and charities and other organizations that receive public donations. Secondly, it's important for large organizations that have significant economic significance. This would apply to organizations that are too big to fail. And there's no such thing as a pure or perfect free market. If we examine the objective evidence and the historical record, there's simply no evidence that there is perfect information and transparency and the ability of markets to self-correct for that reason. The whole theory of free markets and the invisible hand was based on the idea that there was much closer relationships between the people who were purchasing things and the people who were manufacturing or providing those services. I mean, Adam Smith wrote, I think it was at a time when the relationship between a producer and a consumer was much closer than it is today. And so it's very difficult today for consumers and investors to understand exactly all of the factors that are involved in the nature of the business that they're purchasing from. So it reduces accountability, basically. The complexity of our current global economy makes it harder for there to be accountability, and that's why it's incredibly important for there to be robust public oversight and regulation. And financial institutions are central to the functioning of our economy. And as the financial crisis showed, it's important to have that rigorous public oversight, because when there isn't, there is a tendency for organizations to get creative, do things that are quite unwise in the medium and long term, and in the case of some of the investment banks and organizations, particularly in the United States, to actually do things that are completely illegal in order to make more money. And eventually, when the reckoning comes, it's not those organizations that suffer the consequences of their actions. It's been huge amounts of wealth that were wiped off, balance sheets all across the world, and that has very real consequences for ordinary people, people who lost their jobs, lost their houses, lost their livelihoods. And so it's so important to get the balance right. And I'm no fan of regulations that are not effective. I mean, I'm a qualified planner who would be the first to criticize onerous regulations in city plans, which have led to quite quite undesirable outcomes. And I think that we can do things much smarter, but it would be wrong to say that we need to get rid of all regulation, or that all regulation is bad, that all compliance costs are bad, because what might cost us a little bit in the short term could save us quite a lot in the medium and long term. So the Green Party supports the changes in this bill because it seems that the general direction set by the bill is good, and we can support it. We have some concerns about whether or not the large enough organizations will be caught by the definition of large organization, and so it will remain to be seen. And certainly with this whole new framework for financial reporting, it will be important for the government and the opposition parliament to pay attention to what's happening and see that if it is working, and if indeed external users are getting all of the information that they need. It seems to me that it's going to rely a lot on decisions made by the XRB about accounting and reporting standards in that process, and so Parliament will have to monitor whether or not that's working, and whether or not truly all of the information that needs to be available for the public interest is available. And finally, I think there's one big missed opportunity in this whole restructure of the financial reporting framework that has been undertaken over the past few years, and that is the lack of exploration of guidelines for environmental and social reporting, in addition to financial reporting. So that's known as triple bottom line accounting. And there is increasing awareness around the world, and particularly I think amongst younger generations, that maximizing short-term profit at the expense of people and the planet isn't sustainable. Climate talks are happening right now in Warsaw, and the situation is very, very straightforward. The scientists have told us we have to transition to a low-carbon economy, or we're going to impoverish the future of our children, their grandchildren, and their children. So it's important that we start paying attention to more than just the dollars and cents in the short term. It's a commonly understood principle, I think, in private business that you care about what you measure. One cares about what they measure. And at the moment, most organizations, including the government, especially perhaps this government, have a single-minded, narrow focus on dollars, while there are a number of other things that are important for human well-being. And in order for New Zealanders to have good lives, in order for people all over the world to have good lives, we have to pay attention to more than just the dollars. We have to pay attention to the cleanliness of the environment, the air that we breathe, the water, the stability of the climate, and we want to make sure that other people are looked after, because that has an impact on our well-being. I can go out and work really hard, start up a business, make lots of money, but if I live in a society where other people don't have the opportunity to do that for a variety of reasons, then that's going to impact on me, because ultimately I'll have to suffer the consequences of a society that has more crime or more injustice. It's not well looked after. So I think that I would like to see, at some point during my time in this House, a move towards incorporating greater accountability in areas that are not just financial accountability, but also guidelines for environmental and social bottom lines, so that we have an understanding of exactly what it is that we're working towards and trading off. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lotu-Iiga.
Mr. Speaker, this bill will improve the financial reporting system in this country. It will build a brighter, bolder and better future for all New Zealanders. I commend this bill to the House.
Williams.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. New Zealand First